Hello. I got the idea to make this video when I was reading the Ensign. And this article more specifically. Get the words in there. Josephine Booth, sister missionary to Scotland. And this article was about Josephine Booth. She was the 7th full-time sister missionary, female missionary in our dispensation. And when I was reading about this article, I was thinking about this book, Woman in the Priesthood, What One Mormon Woman Believes, by Sheri Dew. And one of the points that Sheri Dew makes in her book is that women in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints do things that would require ordination to do in other Christian churches, or comparable things in other Christian churches would require ordination. So that fact muddies the water, so to speak, when it comes to the issue of ordaining Mormon women to the priesthood. For example, being a full-time missionary, we have many full-time missionaries now. We've had full-time women missionaries for a long time, but we don't ordain them. Teaching a class. Women in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints teach a lot of different classes. It's not just the little kids. They teach the adult Sunday school classes too, and they teach their when we have our church meetings for 1 hour, we divide men and women separately. 1 out of 3 hours, we divide the men and women into separate, groups. Go to our own meetings, and the women teach there. Women lead things. Sometimes a woman's in charge of the activities committee. A woman is in charge of the young women, the women's group. So women are leading things in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints without being ordained. Yeah. And one of the things this article in the magazine had was a little timeline. In 1902, the camera's not good enough, so I'll have to read it to you. 27 sister missionaries. And that was before the 19th Amendment in America. In my preparation for this, I didn't take the time to look up the exact year of the amendment that codified and made it was nationwide women's voting rights. I don't want to say gave the woman the right to vote where they never had it before, because women in America and some of the states did have the right to vote. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had women out there as representatives of our religion, official representatives, before the right to vote in America was guaranteed nationwide by a constitutional amendment. So, in other words, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been good for women's rights and women's dignity. And one evidence of that is the fact that women in Utah got to vote at first when polygamy was going on in Utah. It still is. When polygamy was going on and sanctioned and endorsed and encouraged by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or in other words, when Mormons were polygamists, women got to vote in Utah. That right to vote was taken away because the women were voting for polygamy. And one other way that Mormonism is good for women is there are some parts of the Bible that some antagonists of Christianity in general point to that sound really harsh on women, that Mormons look at differently. The Mormon view of Eve is very different than the view by other Christians. Other Christians, some of them seem to have a hate of Eve. They've got negative opinions and feelings towards Eve. But the Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, whichever one you want to call us, we look at Eve as an extremely wise woman, and we're grateful for her. The story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah is one example where there's a Joseph Smith translation correction to the Bible. Maybe translation isn't the best word to call that thing. Joseph Smith didn't, get the oldest manuscripts he could and retranslate. He received revelations from God about where there had been errors in translation in the Bible, or where inept and or evil scribes throughout the years had changed things in the Bible. And the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, the way it reads in other Bibles is that Lot met two angels, brought them to his house, and then his house was surrounded by the men of the city of Sodom who wanted to gang rape these guests of Lot's, and Lot offered his two daughters to be gang raped by them instead of these angelic guests. The Joseph Smith translation correction to that story, the one that's pertinent to this issue of women's rights, is that Lot did not offer his daughters. The men who surrounded his house and wanted to gang rape his guests, they brought up the idea of Lot's daughters, not Lot. And in which verse was it now? 1 Corinthians chapter 14, the King James Version is translated as this. This is how it reads in King James Version. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, also saith the law. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak at the church. 34, verse 34 and 35. What it Joseph Smith translation corrections makes it say is, let your women keep silence in church, for it is not permitted unto them to rule, but they are commanded, verse 35. Let's see. It is a shame for a woman to rule in the church. So that verse is definitely softened up there. It's talking about women trying to claim leadership positions, claiming to be a stake president, a bishop, the prophet or president of the church, that Paul is denouncing. It's not Paul's not denouncing women teaching lessons and being a speaker at church. Oh yeah, earlier when I was listing things that, did I list that off? Listing things to do without being ordained in the Mormon church that they would need to be ordained in other churches. Speaking is one of them. Last Sunday in my congregation, 2/3 of the speakers in the sacrament meeting were women. Alrighty. Now, 1 Timothy 15, in the King James Version it says, "Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety." But the Joseph Smith translation, in other words, what Paul actually wrote, that God revealed to Joseph Smith, is that she should have been translated as they. Paul wrote they. So the way it should read is, "Notwithstanding they shall be saved in childbearing, if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety." So Paul's letting us know there. Well, the big difference there is the way it reads in the King James Version makes it sound like it doesn't matter if the husband wants to have kids, is trying to have kids, or not. But what Paul actually wrote was that a husband is under an equal responsibility to his wife to try to have some kids and not try to have a childless marriage. Alright, thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about Mormonism, go to mormon.org or lds.org. You have a good day.